What happens is Rabbi Gershon mutes everybody, and he decides to mute me as well. So it's a game we play every single day. So good morning, everybody. I am in Chicago, in case you didn't hear or didn't read my lips. I'm in my house, and I'll tell you a Moiridic story. But first, today's shir is sponsored Eli Nishmas Imi Rusbas Mordechai, and we have a simcha today. One of the B'nai Mishpacha from Miami, Mr. Benchi Trit. Dear MDY team, I would like to sponsor today's daf in honor of the wedding of my son, Jacob Benchi Trit. It's right up there. I don't know if you could see it. Of Miami, Florida, is getting married to Elisheva Goldsmith of Hollywood, Florida. Tonight, Rosh Chodesh Cheshvan. It's always great to get married on Rosh Chodesh. May the simcha be the catalyst for many shidduchim and chasanas in the schus of all the members of MDY and Klal Yisrael. Sincerely, Michael Benchitrit and family, Miami, Florida. Beautiful. It's like now that we had to see him and we saw the video from Michael, we know what he looks like, we know who he is. All right. Sponsored by Doron Kornbluth. By the way, we have to all give a tremendous hakar satov to Doron for watching the Kelev Ra, Kelev Toiv, if there's such a thing. Without him, we wouldn't be able to go on this trip. Rumor has it he's not giving the dog back anytime soon. For the refuah shlema of my father, Uri ben Sarah, Uri should have a refuah shlema right there. On the yard side of our mother and grandmother, Lilu Nishmas, Yoyelas Bas Avram Chana Aleh Shalom. She's Nifter, Shabbos Kodesh, Aleph Mar Cheshvan, Aliza and Avi Sherman and family. Again, one of Bnei Mishpacha. Avi Sherman is the one who sent me an email. He said, you forgot. I already forgot who it is. But he also pointed out that I didn't show a picture of Ben Schwartz. He sent me a picture when I was showing the ones in Far Rockaway. So here's Ben Schwartz. In case you don't know what he looks like, you still won't figure it out. Okay. So Rabbi Isai, here's the story. It's a story to remember. I'll have something to say over for many years to come. I'm pretty careful when it comes to COVID. And in Lincolnwood, where I used to live, that's right off of Chicago, the shul that I daven in, they have two minyanim. One for the people that don't care about masks and that sort of thing, or they care about masks, but they don't care to daven inside, so they daven inside. Then they have the scaredy cats, they daven outside in the tent, so they make a tent for them. I'm a scaredy cat, so I don't daven in the tent. Even on Yom Kippur, I didn't daven in that tent, I daven 10 feet beyond the tent. But at this particular time, I was davening on Shabbos. I'm davening 40 feet away from the tent, all the way by the gate. So somebody that watches the shir every single day, he comes over to me, and he says, Eli, you can't be here because you were in New York. So I'm like, yeah, funny, yeah. Okay, so I saw that he was a little confused by my fake laugh, and he walked away. A minute later, the Rav, I see him marching towards me, he's like, Eli, I'm so sorry, but you gotta leave. He kicked me out of shul. I'm like, I'm not in your shul. I'm 40 feet out of a tent, outdoors. No, so I told him, but I could stand 5 feet away from you guys, and I'm in the alley, it's public space, you can't kick me out. Sorry, those are the rules. So me and my son, we were kicked out, we didn't have a minyan. So that was pretty much the end of that story. Although that's not the end of the story, because I was in a meeting and somebody came to me and says, you were in that meeting and I think I might have tested positive for COVID. Like, are you kidding? So I took him today, we went, he showed me the results. It says, I forgot what it says, abnormal. It didn't say you're positive, it says abnormal. So it's pretty much that he's positive. So we went for a test quickly, 2 tests, the rapid and the regular, and I got the rapid, and we both came out negative. So hopefully it's a false positive. He doesn't have any symptoms whatsoever. So therefore I got to be careful. I'm not coming back to Eretz Yisrael tomorrow. Although I didn't want to come back anyway. It's a good excuse. But so that's where we're holding right now. So I had to push off my trip by a week. I don't even know if that's legally okay, but we'll see. If he comes out negative, and I come out negative, so then it's a false positive, and I could go next week. Otherwise, I don't know what the law is. I might have to stay here for 14 days. Who knows? All right. Weiter. This is from Yoel Weil. Rebelli, how gewaltig is Yeshir? Question mark. On a large screen, even more so. Over 40 years after graduating from yeshiva, I finally decided that I had to learn Shas at least once. I took out the Talmud Bavli from my parents bought me 30 years ago, dusted it off, and started the Daf Yomi cycle. Then I found the Geshmak Shir. Thank you for bringing the Daf to so many and helping keep me on track each and every day. Yoel Weil. Although there's not a picture of Yoel, but it's a picture of me, so whatever. It's better to have pictures of you yourself. I know what I look like. Beseder, Yishkayach, one last one from Yeshaya Friedman. Thank you for Avodas HaKodesh and all your hard work and preparing your shiurim. The 8-minute daf videos are really great, way to chazer, and are much appreciated. Maybe he's watching last year's videos. Is there a transcript available of these videos that one can read and review throughout the day? Thank you. Nah, I mean, the 8-minute is more of a visual than an audio beseder. So that's this. Today is Daf Ayin Aleph. A good Chodesh. It's a 70 daf in Yomi Eruvin. 70 daf. So here we go. We are holding on the bottom of Daf Ayin Amud Beis by Toshma. So, Rava asks Rav Nachman, can a Yerush, somebody inherits a Chatzar on Shabbos, and they can't use the Chatzar, there's no Eruv, can the Yerush, since it's his today, could he be Mevatel's Rishos, could he give it up, could he be Mafkirit, let the other guys use his Chatzar, and therefore they could carry in the Chatzar. Rav Nachman said it's okay, because a Yerush has the same halacha as his father, and just like his father could have done so, he could also. Ask the Gemara Kasha, 2 lines from the bottom, Toshma. Yisrael v'ger shruyim b'megura achas. There's a Jew and a ger who doesn't have anybody to be Yerishim, doesn't have children. They live in the same place. B'megura achas. Goyren, says Rashi. It's where they do the grain. Each one has a little room there. And they didn't make an Eruv. Umeiz ger meba'od yom. And the ger dies right before Shabbos. Top of Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph. Afal pisha hechzik Yisrael echod ben chosav oiser. Even if a Jew grabs, any Jew could grab his property. So even if a Jew grabs the property, he makes a line that makes no sense. Why? Because if there's only a ger and a Jew, and the ger dies, then there's only one Jew. One Jew, one person could carry in his chatzar. What is the problem? There's no problem. So it should say, Im hichzik Yisrael ben chasav oiser. If, not afal pi, not even if. Even is not the right word. Only if, not even if. Rabbi Isai, tremendous simcha. I see Rabbi Yeshua David, Shui Davis from Chicago. Unbelievable simcha. Okay, Shkoyach Shui. Zog the Gemara. Somebody, seriously, you have to monitor that YouTube. I have no idea what's going on. If you see something wrong, let me know. So, Ava Bisha Echzik Yisrael, Acher ben Chasav Oiser, the Gemara is going to ask in a second what's going on. Meshech HaSheicha. If the ger dies once it becomes Shabbos, again, a line that makes no sense. Afapi sheloi hirzik Yisrael acher, even if another Jew did not chap it, eino yoiser. What do you mean afapi? Even. There was an Eruv. Let's do this together. There was an Eruv between the ger and the Jew, and Shabbos came in. What's the halacha if there's an Eruv as Shabbos comes in, and then somebody goes bye-bye or whatever? It's a great Eruv, because if we learned, if there's an Eruv for a little bit, and it's an Eruv for Shabbos. So what does it mean? Afal pi, even shaloi hirzik Yisrael acher. Nobody else grabbed it. It's not us. Of course. Says Gemara Hogufa Kasha. How do we explain this whole brisa? And by the time we're done explaining the brisa, we're going to have a kasha here based on the first part of the brisa. Hogufa Kasha. Amris miba'od yom afal pi shehechzik. Amris miba'od yom afal pi shehechzik v'loi miba'yo kiloi hirzik. What happened? The first case. You have a guy, a ger, and a Jew that did not make an Eruv. So they didn't make an Eruv, it's terrible. So now, afal pi means even if somebody grabbed it, and what happens if somebody didn't grab it? Shouldn't that be good? You're saying even if somebody grabbed it, meaning if somebody did not grab it and it stayed as is, it's certainly not good. If nobody grabbed the ger's nechasim, so one Jew remains the owner of this chatzar, so you're allowed to walk in your backyard on Shabbos. The only problem is if you have a shutaf here without an eruv, but the shutaf died. So what's the problem? Adarabba, ki lo yichzik, if nobody else grabbed it, lo yasar, it's not asar. Omer Papa, so Papa says you have to explain the brayso ema afa pi shelo yichzik. V'afa pi shehechzik tani. So Papa says the top word of the Amud, afa pi shehechzik, you have to stick in a word loy, afa pi shelo yichzik. But that's impossible. You can't just put in a word that reverses the whole meaning. Says the Gemara, no, what Papa meant to say is, no, afa pi shelo yichzik mi ba'od yom. So the afal pi is going on the guy that chapped the property, he didn't grab it before Shabbos. So Rabbi say, this is very interesting. What happened? The ger died. And now there's a sole owner of the chatzar called a Jew. And Shabbos comes in. So we learned, whatever, as Shabbos comes in, whatever the halacha is, it should remain like that. So the Jew is allowed to carry there. So we have a tremendous chiddush. L'chayra, the Jew should be able to carry the whole Shabbos. But Jew number 2, Shimon, comes along and grabs the ger's nechasim. He becomes the balabas. And the chiddush is, he ruins it for the first Jew, for Reuven. Why? But Shabbos came in, and Shabbos, he was allowed to carry in the chatzar. So what made it aser? The answer is, says the Gemara, Kivin the Havelei lahachzik mibayid yoim oiser. Since he had the ability, Shimon, the second Jew, had the ability to chap the ger's nechasim before Shabbos. You're right, he didn't, but he had the ability to. It's as if he did so before Shabbos, and makes it also tremendous chiddush. You hear the chiddush? You have a case. So I'm thinking to myself, because yesterday we had one exception to the rule. Now we have more exceptions to the rule. You have a case where Shabbos comes in and the Jew could carry in his chatzar, and all of a sudden somebody comes along and ruins it for him. How? We had, even if there was a window and then the window got closed, all these things. Here's a case where the guy could ruin it for him. Why? Because halachically he could have grabbed it before Friday, and he didn't, but he could have. Okay, next case.
It's even bigger because Reuven also could have been mafsik in it just the same.
Correct. Very good. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. 100%. I thought about that also. Yeah, 100%. But for whatever reason, Reuven doesn't want to be mafsik in it. You see, he didn't take it. It wasn't. He realizes it's like a South Side Chicago property. They try to give it to you for free, and you don't want it because the taxes are more of a liability than the actual thing. For whatever reason, Reuven was smart. He said, I don't want it. He could have done it on Friday. He could have done it on Shabbos. He doesn't want it. The truth is, if you think about it, I'm talking out loud here. The reason why Reuven didn't grab it on Shabbos is because they didn't want to be a shegitz. How do you kaina a property on Shabbos? You have to start digging. You have to be Michal Shabbos. So Shimon was really Michal Shabbos in order to get it. Some Rishonim say maybe he told the guy to get it for him. Okay, but I hear what you're saying is a good ha'ara. I mean, Meichet Teisa, he grabbed it. Maybe another Jew. Maybe Reuven himself. You're right. Maybe no one. Okay. We're still not at the kasha. We're talking about a kasha on Rav Nachman. Let's not forget. Rav Nachman said that a yoresh could be mevatel instead of his father, just like his father. Okay, we're getting there. If they did make an eruv, the ger and the Yisrael made an eruv, and then it became dark, and then the ger dies. Even if another Jew didn't chop it, he doesn't make it aser. What do you mean? It's only if somebody else grabs it, it becomes aser. Not afal pi shelo yichzik. Amar Papa, same story. You have to change it around a little bit. You can't change something to the reverse of what it says. You can add a little bit, explain a little bit, but you can't 180 it. It says he was machzik, he wasn't machzik, and Rav Papa changed it that he was machzik. No, hachi kamar. It's like a chesuri mechser. It's missing a few words. It's not the reverse. It's missing. Even if somebody comes along and grabs it, even if somebody comes along and grabs it once it becomes dark, once it becomes Shabbos, since over here is the reverse far. Since he couldn't make a chazak on it before Shabbos, why couldn't he make a chazak on Shabbos? Because the ger was still alive. So there's no way for another Jew to come and grab it. Therefore, Eino Yoiser. That's why his chazakah that he does on Shabbos is worthless. Because as Shabbos came in, there was an Eruv on the property. The Jew had a beautiful Eruv with the ger. The ger later on Shabbos died. Too late. It's a good Eruv. Somebody else comes along and chops the ger's property. That's too late. That's a Shabbos that came in with a beautiful Eruv. And here comes the question. The guy that grabs the property, what is he called? The guy that grabs the property, Shimon, what is he? He's a Yerush. He inherited the ger. So according to Rav Nachman, somebody that inherits a ger should be able to be mevatel the reshus. Says the Gemara, Nevatel, why can't he be mevatel? Why are you telling me that if a Jew, another second Jew, Shimon, grabs the property, he ruins it for the first Jew, Ruvain? They have an eitzah. Let them be mevatel to each other. Ruvain give mevatel to Shimon, Shimon give mevatel to Ruvain. What's the problem? According to Rav Nachman, it's not a problem. Even if you acquire a real estate on Shabbos, you can be mevatel. Any Yerush, anybody that acquires something, even on Shabbos, you have the right to be mevatel. Says the Gemara, you're right. According to Rav Nachman, my oyser nami dekatani ad sheyevatel. Yeah, you're right. Enochanami, he could be mevatel. What we're saying is, until that point of bittul, the second guy Shimon makes it also for Reuven to carry in the chutzner. Okay, end the story. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Masni Yosamani, who did this entire brisa that we just discussed? Who does this go according to? That a Yerush comes in, somebody grabs onto the ger's nechasim. He ruins it for the original owner over there. B'shamai, the Amri, ain't bittul rishus b'Shabbos. B'shamai hold. I'm just waiting, Rabbi. I'm waiting patiently for the mini leopard to come here and disturb the whole shir. Maybe knock down the camera or something. Who knows? It'll be another ma'aseh to say over. All right. No, I asked some people to take care of him, but you never know. This guy, you never know. He knows how to open doors. He knows how to turn off lights. It's a problem. So the Gemara, B'Shamai hold you cannot do bittul on Shabbos. This not. We just learned it. When could you give this rishos? When can you not on Shabbos? So you ask me a kasha. Why doesn't he do bittul? Why doesn't the new Yerush, the new owner, the guy that was Michal Shabbos maybe, he started digging in the property of the Ger Shabbos because listen, it's a hefsid meruba, he has all the tightness in the world, he brought a nice shovel, he started digging on Shabbos. That guy cannot be mevatel's rishus to Ruvain. Why? We need to understand Beis Hillel. How do Beis Hillel hold that I can give you my property on Shabbos? Isn't that making a kinyan on Shabbos? What do we do with that? Says the Gemara, Nasa ka'omer klach etzel yafais. This is a sugya that tells us about Mitzvah that if I, for instance, tell a shliach, go ahead and be mafresh trumas from maestros for me. Here, truma, we mentioned the word truma, we got to show truma. If I have produce, I have to take truma, 2%, let's say, to the kohen. So let's say I send you to take truma. Or I don't send you, whatever you want to call it. I believe the real case is that I sent you. But what happened was you decided to take really nice fruit. So how do I know if your truma is chal or not? Maybe I decided that you should take from the really not good fruit. So if I tell you, what's wrong with you? Why don't you go to even the nicer fruit? So now I know I'm not messing with you. Because I have, let's say, 3 categories. You took from the middle one. I say to you, why don't you take from the really nice ones? So I'm being serious. So you should have taken really nice ones, but you know what? You took from the middle ones, great. But what if I have only 2 types and you took from the really good ones? And I tell you, why don't you take from the better ones? I'm being sarcastic. I'm messing with you. I don't want, so your truma is batal. So over here also, when I say I want to be mevatel, I'm telling you, hey, I really wanted to make an eruv on Friday. I just forgot. It's sort of like a breira. We go retroactive and we say, this is what this guy wanted. By me saying you could have my property, I'm telling you what I really wanted to do is put a challah instead of giving you my whole property, my whole house. I should have just put a challah, but you know what? I'm fashlafen, I forgot. That sounds very nice, but it doesn't work. You know why? What happens if a guy, somebody that's ruining it for us, he doesn't want to participate, he can't participate in the Erev, he doesn't want to rent whatever, and he dies on Shabbos. We had Manda Amrim that say, we could go ahead and be mevatel the rishus between us. We take his rishus, and I give it to you, you give it to me. But over here there's no klachetz on Shabbos is because I forgot to do something on Friday. I didn't have an opportunity to do anything on Friday. He was still alive on Friday. He only died right now. So how could I do bittul right now? You're right, completely different machlekes. The Bishami Savri bittul rishus mikna rishusu. Rabbi said, if I would ask you what does bittul rishus do, you probably would say like Bishami that I am giving you my house, so I'm making a kinyan. I'm giving you something on Shabbos. You can't be kind of anything on Shabbos. Umikna rishus b'Shabbos also. Ubesil Savri no. Besil say you're not kind of anything. Istaluke rishus b'almu. All you're doing is you're being mafker. You're going away from your rishus. Not that Shimon is acquiring a new property. It's just that Ruvain is walking away from his property. So there's no other shutaf here. What's the whole problem? Why do you need an Eruv? Because there's two people involved there. Now there's only one person. There's one person that owns property, and there's a property that's not owned by anybody. It's hefker. It's not that you are acquiring a new rishus. And therefore that could be done on Shabbos as well. Alright, we have a brand new Mishnah, brand new Sugyo, brand new Masechta L'Kaved, Rosh Chodesh, on Daf Aleph, 70 Daf in Tehilim. Noam, I hope you're working on that soon. We need some good ideas. How are we going to updo or one up Masechta Shabbos? I don't know if it's possible.
You're going to be doing it in Chicago.
I'll have to come back for the Siyum. 30 days from now. Who knows? This is a crazy world out there. Mamish Meshuga. I was on a Zoom session today with what?
We're putting your house up for rent here.
I'll be Yaitza Kirech and Kanu Mekan. This house is almost for sale here in Chicago. That one over there. Great. Okay. No, they had a whole parent-teacher conference for the yeshiva, and the Rosh Yeshiva was saying, it's so sad. It's so, like, we were looking forward to new Zman, and the Bachar were going to steig. So when everything was over, I said, if anybody wants to hear what I have to say, because nobody really spoke, and I said, we had the same thing. We said, what's going to be without the shir? We had 80 people, 100 people some days, and then comes Corona, and we're like, oh, the whole thing's going to go. And you know what? We made lemonade out of lemons, and we have thousands of people watching, and it's even better, and who would know? Without Corona, who would know where we are today? And look at the Siyum. I told him about the Siyum. So we were going for 100 places. Who would ever believe 100? It might have been more than 500 places, not people, places. In Belarus, 70 people. The oil of the red, 15 people. I don't know what. And in Farakwe, people were Siyumim and all this stuff. You never know. It might even be better than having yeshiva. Who knows? Zog the Gemara. Bachar will learn how to self-discipline and this without mashgichin, without Rosh Yeshivas. You never know. Zog the Mishnah. We're talking about a mavi now. So we're shifting slightly from a chatzar to a mavi. And you have a guy there that was a shutaf. Now, what's going on is that they were partners in, let's say, wine before this whole shituf mavais came along. Right? So you have houses that lead into a chatzar, and the chatzeros, and the chatzeros lead into a mavi, into an alley. So in order for you to carry from the chatzar to the alley, etc., you need a shituf mavais. In order to carry from your house to the chatzar, you need an eruv. To carry from chatzar to chatzar, you need an eruv. But to carry from the chatzar to the alley, you need a shituf. Same idea, basically. We're going to see that you need both, you need one. But they partnered up, let's say, in a barrel of wine. Stop. They wanted to buy wine for the whole a communal wine. And then they say, hey, you know what? Let's take this wine, let's make it an Eruv. Let's make it a Shituf. So Balabai you should have l'shchenov, l'zeh b'yayin, l'zeh b'yayin. So you have three people. Reuven and Shimon, they made a Shituf with wine. Shimon and Levi made a Shituf with wine. And they all poured it into one kli, as the Gemara is going to say. They put it into one kli. Einon tzrichim la'arev. So once you have a Shituf, says the Mishnah, you don't need to make another Eruv. But what if there's two Eruvin going on, two Shitufim going on here? The middle guy made one Shituf with wine, and then one Shituf with oil, with the other guy. Reuven and Shimon with wine, Shimon and Levi with oil. Tzrichim la'arev. They need an Eruv. It's not enough, the Shituf. Reb Shimon Omer, echad zeh ve'echad zeh, einon tzrichim la'arev. Reb Shimon argues, I'm going to see in the Gemara what exactly he argues on, maybe it's another case completely. It's okay, even oil and oil don't need another, oil and wine don't need another Eruv. Omer Rav, ubekli echad. Now, we actually learned that you don't really need one kli, so Rashi explains, if you start off an Eruv, and everybody comes, it's a lot of people, a bungalow locality. Each guy comes with a bunch of wine, everybody has wine, they start pouring, and all of a sudden it starts overflowing, so you take another vessel, that's 100% okay. But over here, since we started off as a business, as stop, we bought wine together for the Suda, not for the Eruv, not for the Shituf. Therefore, our Shituf must be in one Kli. Amar Rava, says Rava, it's Pashat. You see that from the Mishnah. Dakenami, Diktani lezeh b'yayin lezeh b'shemen, tzrichin la'arev. The second case of the Mishnah, if one person brought oil, the other person bought wine, you need to make an additional Eruv. Or shapir, call it how you want it as an American, shapir. If the Reish is talking about one kli, the Seif is talking about two kalim. Now I understand the difference between wine and oil, because they're in two separate kalim. But if the Reish is also talking about two types of wine, let's say two wines in two different kalim, what is the difference if they're two different products? If they're the same product but not in the same kli, who cares? Why is that any different than wine and oil? Obviously, the Reish is talking about one kli, and the Seif is talking about. But wine and wine, I can mix them. So even if I don't mix it, I could mix it, and therefore it's one product. And even if it's in two kalim, it still does the same job. But since you cannot mix oil and wine, so if they're in two separate kalim, which they should be in two separate kalim, otherwise they'll have a mess, it doesn't work. That's not a good Eruv. It's not a good sheet. So therefore you have to make another Eruv. So the end of the Mishnah tells us that according to Reb Shimon, there's no difference between wine and wine and wine and oil. What's going on here? What? It makes no sense. If this guy brings wine and this guy brings oil, how can you combine it? Amar Rabba, you're right. It's a completely different story, something you would never dream about. It's not what it says in the Mishnah. There's something else. He's not talking about the Reish of the Mishnah. So we actually discussed a little bit of this when I came to Chicago, like the first day in Chicago. This is from day, kind of, in the first. Here's a chotzer, here's mavui. We're talking about the chotzer. There's a guy that lives in the middle chotzer, and he's surrounded by mavais. Okay? Reb Shimon letamei, the snan, or Reb Shimon, you'll remember in a second what we're talking about here. Or Reb Shimon, lema dovet doimel, l'sholish chatzeres, I'll remind you. Remember this case, we had three people, and one is in the middle, and he makes an Eruv with this guy, and he makes an Eruv with this guy, but these two guys do not make an Eruv together. That's sugya. So, we have l'sholish chatzeres hapsuches zu lezu, psuches l'shus harabim. Here, remember we had 3 chatzeres, 1, 2, 3, they're all open to each other, and they're all open downwards to the Rosh Hashanah down here. This guy, the 2 outer guys, did not make an Eruv with each other, and therefore they are usher to go through and through, but this guy in the center makes an Eruv with both. The 2 outer ones made a Eruv with the inner one, with the center one. The middle one is allowed with the outer ones, and the outer one is allowed with the middle one. But they cannot go with this white arrow down here. So Mela, that's what's going on over here. So Chachamim are going to come along and say, no. Since it's not made from the same product, it's not just wine and wine. One guy's with wine, one guy's with oil. So Memela, I'm concerned, say Chacham, that you're going to go from one end, and by mistake, you're going to go to the middle, because you're allowed to go to the middle, and then from the middle, all of a sudden, you're going to find your way to the other end. So I'm going to say everybody's also to go everywhere. It became a big also. They made the Isser, they made a Gzeira. Nobody could carry anywhere because you're not using the same product. If they would use the same product, wine and wine, then it would be okay. Over there it says mefurish that the outer guys are also with each other. Over here it doesn't say so. Over here it says a lashon ein tzrichim la'arev, meaning nobody has to. Even the outer guys don't have to make an eruv. Ein tzrichim la'arev shchenim b'hadei ba'al bayis. No, we're talking the same case as we had before. It's ein tzrichim la'arev is not no one has to be married. This guy with this guy doesn't have to be married. This guy and this guy doesn't have to be married. But the outer guys definitely have to make eruv. Avashchenim b'hadei adodi tzrichim la'arev. Boy side, today's Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is a very special day. It's the changing of the guards. We are changing to a new sponsor today. The turning of the daf. So we still have to daven for a shidduch, for Mark Steinberg's son, and for Mr. Anonymous, Hatzlach in Yiddishkeit, for him, his whole family. Today, it's an old sponsor, back to the old sponsor. Dr. Alan Listhouse, the tzaddik. In memory of my mother, Shendel Bat Aaron Hirsch, and Bracha. By her son, Dr. Alan Listhouse, who drove in, I think it was 2 hours, to Muncie. And had to drive back. Who knows when he got back there? 1, 2 in the morning, maybe even later. I don't remember when we finished over there. Zog the Gemara, Daf Aleph, Amud Beis. Rav Yosef Omar. Rav Yosef says different shot. What is Reb Shimon coming to say in the Mishnah? Reb Shimon, V'Rabbanon, Beblukto, Reb Yochanan, V'Rabbanon Kemifligi. We're talking about everybody put their eruv in one kli. They put the oil, they put the wine, all in one kli. One mavui, one kli. This is a machlokes we already had in the beginning of Sechta. Reb Yochanan ben Nuri and Rabbanon. This is not. Shemen should gabi yain. If you have oil, you're talking about truma now. Again, truma. No, we're not going to go to this list, but you have oil made out of this, truma. And it's floating on top of the wine. You have a person that's tamei who went to the mikvah, but's waiting for a harav shemesh until the nightfall. So he's a tful yom. The only thing he could make tamei in his life is truma. If he touches chulin, it's not tamei. He's an in-between kind of, he's semi-tamei. He could only make truma tamei. He could passel, let's call it, he passels truma. So what if he touches the top oil, which is floating on top of wine, do we consider it as if he touched the bottom wine? Loi pasal el Hashem bevad. Chacham say they're separate. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri omer shneim chiburim zelazeh. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri say they're not separate; they're one and the same. Oh, so you already chapped the machlokes. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says it's one and the same. So maybe it's one eruv. The oil and the wine is one eruv. So Rabbanon say it's separate, so it's separate, and Memela cannot combine the eruv, the two separate eruvin. Reb Shimon holds that it's one Eruv. Tanya. So we have a third shita. We have in the even oil and wine, you don't have to make another Eruv, and we just explain another pshat, beautiful pshat, because it's one. Oil and wine could be one, you touch the top, it's as if you touch the liquids are liquids. And we had in the Mishnah, it depends. The wine guy is good, but the oil and the wine is not good. Now we have no. Everybody holds, says Rebbe Elazar ben Tadai, even wine and wine. What's wrong with wine and wine? 100%. If there's an empty barrel, and everybody comes along and pours their wine into the barrel, so what am I pouring in when I pour in my wine into my barrel? Into the barrel, I'm pouring my wine, my 100% wine, into an empty barrel. And you pour your wine, which is owned by you 100%, you pour it into the barrel. Yeah, we have to give a mazel tov to Yomi Eruvin, who's a film magachir at night, who's part of the Daf Yomi at night. Now he's giving the shir at night. His daughter got engaged. So tremendous mazel tov to Yomi Eruvin. He's a tremendous chacham. He's a magachir in the yeshiva, the mesifta. Unbelievable simcha. Kulei alma loy pligi. He's also known as one of the only normal guys in our show. When voted, that's maybe no fix. We try to get him on the list. Also, it's a shaila. But for whatever reason, Reuven Chait and Yomi Eruvin, they started out, no fix. It's like the memala muckim for the normal guys. Okay, fine. Kulei alma loy pligi to have an eruv. When we buy a barrel of wine together, then it's not mine and it's not yours. Each person owns 100%. It's shutfos. I own from every molecule of wine, from every ounce, I own part of it, you own part of it. So memela, for me to say that my eruv is over here, this part of the wine, and your eruv is this part of the wine, is very problematic. For that you have to come on to yesh breira. If I start off with my wine, I took it out of my refrigerator, it's mine. I just poured it into a barrel, and you poured your wine into a barrel. That's beautiful. That's how our eruv works. But if we're buying the wine together, it's like doing schayra, says Rashi, with money. You don't know which part of the money is whose. There's a $100 bill. What's mine? What's yours? And therefore you have to start all over again. You have to make a new eruv. It's not true. Even if we buy a barrel together, I could point out that these 10 ounces are mine and those 10 ounces are yours. Yesh breira. You could retroactively configure the eruv. Rav Yosef Amar, here's a shaila. If I just do a shituf, which is basically the same thing as an eruv, can I get away with not performing an eruv at all? I did a shituf for the mavoi. We all did a shituf mavais so that we could carry the chatzah to the mavoi, but we forgot to do an eruv. Is that enough for me to carry from my house into the chatzah? There's another step. How do I get from my house to the chatzah? How do I go from a chatzah to another chatzah? To go from a chatzah to a mavoi, then I did a shituf. But anything related to the house and the chatzar, and the chatzar to the chatzar, I need an eruv. The Mar Savar Ein Soimchin. Relevant to that, he says, no good. You have to start all over. Mar Savar Soimchin. Rav Yosef min Aminallah. I'll prove it to you. That's the machlokes. Domer Rav Yehuda Omer Rav. Rav Yehuda says in the name of who? Rav. Halacha ke Rav Meir. And we'll see in a second what he says, but basically Rav Meir says that shituf is not good enough for an eruv. You have to do shituf and an eruv. And then he comes along, V'omar Rav Broina, Omar, first Rav says, halacha is like Rav Meir, that a shituf is not instead of an eruv. You need both. Comes another Rav and says, halacha ke Rebbe Elazar ben Tadai. That the eruv is no good, you got to start over. My taima, l'choira, la mishum d'chataimu. Says Rav Meir, it's one reason. That what? Shituf is not instead of an eruv. And that's the problem with Rebbe Elazar ben Tadai. That's what Rebbe Elazar ben Tadai said, you have to start all over. Why? Mechetesa? Okay. So then let's Rav say one halacha to his talmidim. The halacha is that shituf doesn't work instead of eruv. Why do you have to say the halacha is like Reb Meir, the halacha is like Reb Elazar ben Tadoi? It's the same idea you're telling me. According to you, it's one idea. So say the idea straight out, and that's it. Each person has to perform an eruv. In addition to the eruv, you have to do a shituf. If you do just shituf, it doesn't work. Hakam mashmallah. The Lo Yavdinon, tremendous idea here, says the Gemara. In Hilchas Eruvin. The Lo Yavdinon kitrei chumri be'eruvin. Wow. So, the halacha is that you're not allowed to use two chumras from one person. And Reb Meir says two chumras here. First of all, he says that a shituf doesn't work for an eruv. You have to do both. But he says something else. He also says that you need to use bread. Wine is not good enough. So Rav wouldn't be able to use him. Because in Eruvin is everything's lekula. So to use one Reb Meir who says two chumras, he wouldn't be able to do it. So in Mela, he said halacha is like Reb Meir in one thing, that shituf is not enough. You have to do shituf and eruv. And he said the halacha is like Reb Tadai, that you can't use wine. You need to use, when it comes to an eruv, because eruv is a house. I'm making my house one with your house. And for a house, you need bread. Maybe for a shituf, wine is okay, because that's a mavoi. But for houses, the urim, you need bread. You hear what's going on here? It's a chodesh. I see Noam is not very happy with this. It's like two chumras within the same halacha, within the same category, and you cannot do two chumras. Big in Eruvin, not in Shas, in Eruvin.
They don't seem to be related, that's why.
I even stuck in that's why you're bothered. But they're related because they're within. It's one halacha that Reb Meir argues on Chachamim. It's that one thing that he says, you cannot use bread and shituf doesn't work. It's like one line that he says. Here, let's see it. My Meir u'may Rabbanon, the Sanya. Me'arvim b'chatzerois b'pas. When it comes to eruv v'chatzerois, you need bread. V'imratzu la'arv b'yayin, ein ma'arvim. Wine doesn't work. Mishtatvim b'mavi b'yayin. When it comes to mavi, you could use wine. V'imratzu l'shtat b'pas. Of course, you can use bread, mishtatvim. Me'arvim chatzerois u'mishtatvim b'mavi. You need to do both. You need to do a eruv chatzer and a shituf mavi. Why? So it's very interesting. You could get away with one. You could get away with a shituf. You don't need a eruv. The whole point is that the children, to grow up in such a place, they'll never know there's a concept of eruv. So I don't know if this answers your question, but it's within the same. It's in one line. It's been the same thing. So I cannot take the two chumras from this and go with it. As I state. Fine, that's it. All you need to do is either a shituf, and a shituf works for an eruv, and that's it. The boys say, have a wonderful day, and now we'll do some Tehilim. Yisher koyach. Что? מה קורה? ומה אומר?